Here we go.
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition. Here, here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! This is escape, then we're the pod.
Welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod and our 429th episode, which is unreal. Just laughing about over here. How many times we've been doing this? Hitting 7 years, and we're always celebrating Star Wars every week that we come on here and do a chat. And this week we have special guest Molly returning from the last time that we heard from her, back when we were talking with Jess Tompkins about her new book. The Zeitgeist of the Mandalorian, I believe. And then prior to that, we had Molly on to talk about her time working at Disney Parks on Galactic Star Cruiser. So this time, we have her on to celebrate 5 years of The Bad Batch, the release of The Mandalorian Grogu, and just to, shoot some Star Wars conversation. So let's get into it.
Another happy landing.
All right, welcome back, Blake.
Hey, Cha-Cha, another episode, 429, not 700 like I said, close enough.
Feels like 700 sometimes. All right, and big welcome back to Molly. Hello there.
Hello, I'm so excited to be back, and what an episode. I mean, I can't thank you guys enough for bringing me here for two of my very, very favorite Star Wars things.
Oh, we absolutely love having you on here, and yeah, I mean, these both of these things just kind of right up your alley. I mean, I feel like these days, I don't know how you did it, but anytime I think of The Bad Batch or The Mandalorian, I think Molly.
Oh, and you know what? That means mission success. That means I've accomplished everything I need to accomplish in life, and I can just retire now.
Clearly, I spent a bit too much time on the Twitter or the X.
You have to see me tweet about space dads every day.
Yeah,
Literally today,
yeah.
I think I just tweeted and said space dads, and that's all I need to say.
That's
So that everybody gets it.
That's right. Yeah, so man, it's been a while since we've opened up to this theme song because when we did the
Couldn't even
after
remember
show.
what it was. We were just talking about that off the air.
Yeah. I mean, like,
Josh just started humming it. I'm like, what? I recognize this. And then he pulled it up. I'm like, this is you nailed it.
it's been a while. Dude.
I can't lie. That I got a little emotional hearing that. I love the show so much. Like hearing the theme, I was like, oh. And I listen to the Kiner score of The Bad Batch all the time, like unironically, and on the way to work, everywhere, all the time. So good.
It's great. I mean, like Kevin Kiner, he does such a great job, and
such a long way too from Clone Wars.
Man.
Yeah,
he's like, I mean, I was 13 when the movie came out for the Clone Wars.
Oh goodness,
and
is it even a movie?
I went to so funny story about that. I went to the theater for my birthday, and that was what I decided to do. Was like we all biked to the theater and saw
like
it.
the
And
opening
Diego, I don't know if anyone knows Diego, but he was on our Clone Wars after show for like 40 episodes. He's a huge Star Wars fan like me, less so now, but more so back then. And like I was like, man, we're gonna love this movie. Like this is insane. Like he loved the Gendy Tartakovsky series,
They're
like
so
the 2D.
good, man. I love
And so
those.
like when we left the theater though, he was just like, dude, that sucked. I was so hurt. I was like,
You're like, I
man,
don't know
what are
what
you
to believe
talking
anymore.
about? Like that movie was awesome. And then like as the years have gone by, I'm like, oh yeah, like it
was rough.
it was rough. Like they've done like the shows like The Bad Batch have demonstrated
Oh my
just
goodness.
like how much farther they've come with like the quality and the music and so many things.
Yeah.
And but yeah, Kevin Kiner has been consistently good through all of it. I'll say that.
100%.
Oh yeah, for sure. I would not be shocked if he is like at least top 5 of my Spotify artists. Like the situation's very serious. There are some days where all I listen to is the Bad Batch score. It's crazy. I just like it really just immerses me. It's like I get to rewatch those moments in my head every time I hear the score, and I could go on about that forever. So I'm like, let me stop now.
And I feel like this is a good time to interject, even though maybe it's jumping ahead a little bit, but it feels like a good opening. Because the Clone Wars movie, Stinky, shows up,
Yeah, that's right.
shows up in the Mando and Grogu movie.
Oh my goodness, yeah. I mean, we're jumping ahead a little bit here, but yeah, what a throwback. Yeah, to anyone who like
was like, I guess Dave Filoni, you could argue that was his like theatrical release. It was like, technically, but I guess both of his theatrical releases have to do with Stinky.
Yeah, and well, to make like a practical version of Stinky, like, you know, to put in the hologram, you know, in the movie, and I was like, man, that was for me.
I think that's when they did it.
Yeah,
I think it was like, do you remember?
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. Like
I think like that bit was probably one of the best parts of the whole movie. Like when they pull up that hologram.
Oh yeah,
man, it was so
what a
funny.
throwback.
I definitely had a no way.
Yeah,
moment.
No way. Like it's like almost like they did it. Like, they brought him back.
Yeah.
That's right.
Anyway, so yeah, Bad Batch. Like what? You know, you may have mentioned it before, like a long time ago when we first chatted. That one of the times that you've been on here, but what pulled you into the Bad Batch? Like what made you such a big fan of the cast, like the characters and the show and the plot? Like, you know, just like feel free to kind of go on the rant about that.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you for the invitation, because I will. Because it goes back fairly far, and it actually all starts with The Mandalorian. Everything comes back to that. And of course, we all know The Mandalorian premieres end of 2019, and Clone Wars Season 7, which is the Bad Batch's official debut. Now, we all know that they were technically created for those unfinished arcs before the Clone Wars got canceled. Yeah. I wasn't completely aware of that because I hadn't dug super deep into my Star Wars lore yet at that point. So they were new to me when Season 7 came out, and that was happening while I saw Mandalorian and went, oh God, I really need to dig in and lock in and like sit down, watch Clone Wars, watch Rebels, because I'd watched it on TV growing up, but I hadn't, without something like Disney Plus, I hadn't been able to like take it all at once and sit down and watch it. So I remember it's actually kind of funny. So I started watching Clone Wars, got to the Mortis arc when I got my wisdom teeth out. And so I was waking up like feverishly in pain. And like all of a sudden, like, why is there like a floating cloud image of Darth Vader's mask over Anakin and like Ahsoka's evil? Like I was so confused. And so that's kind of where I was like, man, I don't know. So I ended up shelving Clone Wars for a bit. But then Season 7 came out. And I remember, of course, me being me on Twitter. I'm on Twitter and I'm seeing clips from like the Bad Batch arc. And I'm like, who are these clones? Like I've always loved clones, and I was like, who are these people? And I specifically remember, like, I don't remember exactly what clips of like Hunter and Tech specifically, but I went, I need to watch this show. So I caught up to Clone Wars Season 7 by the last arc, thankfully, and ended up watching that with my dad. And so obviously they announced Bad Batch not long after Clone Wars came to an end. So it actually might have been the same day, I don't remember. But I was like, oh, that's great. So I was super hyped for that, you know, waiting for 2021. And we had Mando Season 2 before that. And like from that first episode, like I watched obviously on May 4th, 2021 when Bad Batch came out. And it was funny because I remember before like seeing the trailer, I was like, oh, Rex, you know, like all this fun stuff that I recognize. And then like we're 2 minutes in and I'm like, oh, yeah, like I know I'm about to lose my soul to this show in the best way possible. Like I'm so deep, and I'm like, oh, Hunter's just in jar in another font. Okay, I'm cooked. Like I knew right away who I was in that moment, and from then on, I was sold. You know, I can't like stay away from a good little reluctant father figure situation happening. And then, of course, you add like the whole dynamic of the whole batch, which is so fascinating. And you have like the crosshair antagonist. It was like crazy. I just was like, this is so good. And yep. So they had me locked in from that first moment. But there is a bit of lore to like the Bad Batch in general. And them being the reason why I finished Clone Wars. So, you know, they're very special to me. They've always been very special characters. And I mean, D. Bradley Baker, man,
he's so
what
good.
A talent! What a great guy!
There's no way
and
I mean, for this show.
Oh yeah,
Oh no, there's no way. And it's crazy how he can just go into their voices. Like,
it's crazy.
I met him. Yeah, I met him at a con last year, and he did a panel with Michelle. And there was a brief moment where he was like going through the voices, and it was just crazy to watch it happen seamlessly. I'm sitting there dressed as Hunter. I'm like, wow, I'm first row. He accidentally calls Hunter Smoker. I went, like, gave him the most panic look. He's like. He was trying to say smoky voice for Hunter, and he just merged it, and it was so funny. And he did this whole bit with records. He was something like, you can hear him before you see him, kind of thing, and like coughing. Oh god, it was so funny. But he's just so talented, and Michelle Ang is such a sweetheart who just loves that role. Great cast, and that's what more can you ask for? Amazing show, great characters, great cast, like.
Michelle
cinematic.
Ang is definitely such a talent as well. Like, I mean, very, very cool that they actually cast somebody from New Zealand who, I guess a lot of people don't really know, that, Tem is from New Zealand. So it was really cool that they actually like sourced an actress or, actor from that area of the world to try and get that, like, that accent just nailed down properly.
That's true.
Very neat. Yeah.
Okay, put a pin in that because before we go too far, I need to find out more information about this wisdom teeth fever dream situation while watching the Mortis, which is already a fever dream within.
Yeah, that must have been insane. Like,
yeah. So, and the wisdom teeth thing is a whole thing in and of itself, because that is also the starting point of all my interactions with Pedro Pascal. Which is interesting because
your fever dreams?
No, what happened was, so I got my wisdom teeth out, and this is literally like the beginning of January 2020. So right after, like, Mando season 1 just ended. So now I'm getting into like Mandalorian, but I'm also like getting into Pedro's filmography and everything. So like I'm loopy because I just came off anesthesia, and my mom, she leaves me in the car to go get my ice cream. Like we're post-op. I haven't even been home yet. And I just pull out my phone and start recording myself. And so one of the things I did was I recorded a video. This is when Pedro was still on Twitter. And so I recorded a video specifically for Pedro, tag him, and I'm like talking to him and apologizing because I can't roll my R's to say his name correctly because I have gauze in my mouth, and I'm like, I love Din Djarin, I love the Mandalorian, I wish I could get a hug, whatever. and he doesn't see it for like right away, of course. It's Pedro, and he wasn't like he wasn't like the A-list that he is now yet. He was getting there. But then he saw it 2 months later, right around the time that like COVID lockdown started, which was actually 3 days before my birthday. So that's when he saw the video, he watched it, he responded to my tweet, liked the video. It was crazy. I was like, what in the world? And then when I met him at Star Wars Celebration Japan last year, I brought it up and he remembered.
That's
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, crazy. Like that. So that also
I can roll my R's now.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, look, I can say your name. He was very sweet about it. Yeah, I know. And he was like, you say my name perfectly in every way, and like I wish I could give you a virtual hug. Like, so sweet. And then he's like, now we're meeting in Japan? Like, I was like, yeah, I don't know. And then that same day I was on the Mortis arc, and I woke up and my mouth hurt, and I was like, my face was swollen by 2, and I was like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I was so lost. I just have like
crazy. So
yes, I just like had like memories of like waking up and there's just like Morai was somewhere around like that, and then there's like the brother. I'm like what's happening? Yeah, the father, son, daughter. I'm like, what's
wow, what a round trip, because like how long ago was it that you were watching that arc?
It was,
2020.
From then to now, that was early 2020. So that's 6 years ago.
6 years ago.
6.5 years ago. Oof.
Wow, crazy. Like,
that's terrifying, actually.
Yeah, and then like that coming full circle for a lot of people with Ahsoka coming out and you know, sort of hinting at revisiting that.
I hope they do. That'd be
lore.
So cool.
Yeah, what a cool
the coolest arcs.
What a cool.
I know it must have been challenging to sit through, and you're still post-op wisdom teeth. But,
yeah,
man, it was a highlight for me, that one. That wasn't punk rock.
When that came out, I mean, like, yeah, like that was a season. That was Clone Wars season 3. I believe.
Was that 3? I thought Pong Krell was 3 as well. So that was just a good season.
Pong Krell, that was season 4, I believe.
I think that was 4. But I love as devastating as the Umbara arc is one of my favorites, because I'm a clone lover and there's so much good clone content. But I'm like, at what cost? At what cost? War crimes and Pong Krell.
Imagine if that was the opening movie they launched with.
Oh
my gosh,
dude, they would have nailed it.
Yeah.
They would have, honestly. Like, that arc is just, oh my gosh, it's so fantastic. It's so horribly fantastic. You know what I mean? Like, it's like
so moody.
so devastating, but it's so good.
What's crazy is when Ahsoka comes out, like technically if it came out this year, it would have been 15 years since when the Mortis arc was released.
Okay.
But when season 2 comes out next year, it'll technically be like 16 years about. But yeah, like revisiting that kind of stuff, you know, like I was like, wow, it's an anniversary in itself. Like, 15 years
Oh,
later.
for sure.
But-
Yeah. And it's kind of crazy to think how long it's been since Ahsoka season 1 already. Like, we're almost hitting 3 years. Which by the
far
time
too
season
long.
2 comes, it'll be like 3.5. And like the longest we've gone between seasons is Mando season 2 and 3. And technically, if you want to count Mando season 3 and the Mandalorian and Grogu, that
whole
was the
Boba Fett
longest.
thing,
But
it's like, I don't know if it really was a full gap, you know?
So
yeah, that's the thing for season 2 and 3. Yeah, you're right. But season 3 to the movie, that was a bit hard for me because that was almost 3 years.
Dry spell, yeah.
So for Bad Batch, what's a highlight for you out of season 1? Like, you talked about kind of the hooks of like getting into the show, but what really stuck out for you? Because like for me, when I think back to season 1, I think the emotional depth that I hit when the finale happened, when Kamino was just like devastated to Polka City, because like, that movie, like Attack of the Clones kind of remains to be like this, like a moment in time for me, like as a kid, where like that was when I got the most amount of action figures, like as a kid, like, I remember when that movie hit the theaters. And like watching just this place like just get demolished by the Empire, knowing what happened finally, to that place, I was like, man, like
That's season 1.
What is like season 1 finale. So that's what stays with me with season 1. But what stays with you like with season 1 with that show?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I will quickly second the point on Kamino. Kamino was like the first Star Wars planet I fell in love with because I'm also Attack of the Clones kid. Like that was the movie that was being played all the time when I grew up. And I remember my older brother had the original Star Wars Battlefront and I would just play on the Kamino map all the time. Like I'm in kindergarten. I'm like playing Battlefront and Camino. Like I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just running around. So I've always loved Camino, and so obviously
confusing
that was
on the platforms.
Such a good map.
I was just running around. Like I don't
sniped at
remember
every
doing
direction.
anything. Yeah, I'm sure I was probably like zero kills and 16 deaths or something.
Yeah.
Like the ratio is not great. But yeah, so obviously that finale is just like huge. But when I think back to season 1, I have lots of really fond nostalgia. But for me, it is the relationship between Hunter and Omega that I just always go back to. Like it was such like a beautiful development and so unexpected, like from before the show came out, in a way that was the same way that captivated me, or the same thing that captivated me with the Mandalorian and Grogu.
Yeah.
Before we knew who Grogu was in terms of name, and just seeing that relationship develop, but then also with the context of more members of the batch and everything, and how there was like such a thread of tension between that and with Crosshair. Like it just, I have a lot of like, if I'm going back to watch season 1, I want to have my fond nostalgia of seeing them so early on, like, and seeing Hunter kind of become like the father figure he becomes, and like it's just, But then also I remember the big deal it was to me that Fennec was going to be in another Star Wars project.
Yeah.
And I was so excited. And I love that episode to this day. Like, so good. There's just so many good moments in season 1 that really tie nicely into the rest of the show, but then also like so many great Star Wars connections that made sense.
Yeah.
I don't think people were ready to trust the process when it came out, but when you look back now, I feel like it's very satisfying to be like, oh, we did need to, do this little side quest. But yeah, I don't, that was kind of like a random, like a very roundabout way of answering. But yeah, to me, I'm always going to fall for those father-daughter / son relationships. It's always going to get me.
Yeah, that's a, it's a special relationship. What when I watched the finale, I remember thinking to myself how cool it was that they took a different angle to it than what the previous comics had kind of depicted, and it took me a while to kind of be okay with it. but the appearance of Caleb Doom in the pilot was really cool, and I was like, man, that's
Order 66.
That's awesome.
That's
like
one of the first things I thought of when we talked about season 1.
Yeah. So that's something that stuck with you then. Yeah. So like, you know, Caleb Doom shows up. We had Saw Gerrera like show up in the pilot.
Yeah.
And you know, for any Rogue One fans, for any Rebels fans, like it was really like pulling in a bunch of people, you know, a bunch of audiences from different areas. And then in the second episode, we had the clone deserter Cut LaQuaine show up, who was like, that was a callback. Wow. Yeah,
you remember him? Specific Clone Wars.
That was like, that was like Clone Wars season.
He was a deserter before the war was even started.
Yeah, dude, that was like
Clone Wars season 1 or 2. Like that was early on.
Like one or two. Yeah, it was crazy early, and it's like, wow, like what a way to kick off a show, you know, like just like bringing in characters like that. That obviously stuck with a lot of people too.
And it was like, it was like the perfect way to also lead into what like foreshadow what's coming in the like, you know, in the show, like having a character like Cut, who was like, you know, basically clone stepdad. We love that. The father who stepped up truly, and like setting up, you know, how the show ends with you have to put your life of being soldiers aside, and they really were not ready to do that for a long time, but it was all foreshadowed from Cut saying that to Hunter on Saleucami. And so they didn't know Pabu was coming, and it's just like I love watching that back now and all the foreshadowing. It's so satisfying. But you're so right. And having Caleb, and it, you know, it's so crazy when you think about it, because I think I'd also just watched Rebels like fully through for the first time before watching Bad Batch, like when it came out, and having like Caleb/Kanan and Hera, like young versions of them in the same season, is so crazy, but like in a good way. And now it makes me even more, now that Omega's a Rebel pilot, it makes me want to have that moment where, you know, everybody just kind of realizes, like, if hopefully it's before anything happens to Kanan realizes who she's related to, and Hera realizes, or remember, like, you know, like it would just be so fun. I would love to have that moment, and then Hunter and the others get the closure that they helped him survive as long as he did. Yeah, you know.
What about season 2 stuck with you? Like, you know, there was a bit of a different territory there, you know, with the plot and, you know, the ongoing chase for Omega. Like, you know, what stuck with you from that season?
Oh God, I love season 2. Even though season 1 has a lot of nostalgia for me, season 2 I think is my favorite. Like that's the one when I rewatch a ridiculous amount of times, as I always do. Like I always go back to season 2 episodes, and obviously, Plan 99 is what I think of when I think of season 2. Even though I cannot get through that episode without the emotions getting worse every time, which is crazy. It's like you think it'd get better, it doesn't. It gets worse. But I really, it's. To me, I love how season 2 really dug into some more complex emotional themes in terms of, like, you know, we have Echo leaving and the group struggling with that. Like even Tech kind of openly admitting, like, you know, this is something I don't understand. This is how I deal with it. And I really do like Tech getting that spotlight he got, and part of that comes from Tech being one of my favorites, also being my dad's favorite. Like my dad is Tech, so it's like he's a very special character to me. But
season 3
it's nothing. So
we'll get
one thing about Plan 99. So if you remember, like at least half of season 2 came out while Mando season 3 was coming out, right? Which you would think is like a dream for me, and like it was, but also it was hard because it kind of meant that I'm like, oh God, they're both kind of battling for my attention right now. And so what I would do is I would wake up at 3 a.m. because they weren't doing 9 p.m. releases yet. So I'd wake up at 3 a.m. Eastern time, watch the new Mandalorian episode, then I'd watch a new Bad Batch episode or episodes. Wow. And the Plan 99 day was the day that chapter 21, the pirate, came out of Mando. And that's the one where, you know, they go back to Navarro, save Navarro, and then we get the Bo-Katan can walk both worlds. And I was like not happy with that initially, just because I was like, well, why can't Din do that? Like I was just a little frustrated. So I was like, you know what? It's fine. I'm going to go watch the Bad Batch finale and it's going to be great. Well, like 4:30 in the morning, and I'm like, okay, so so that just happened, and I have to like message my dad because he was at this point sometimes watching episodes at work, and I went, so don't do that today. Don't do that today, please.
Probably just made it more curious.
Yeah.
Yep. And from the second my dad watched that, he has literally been a Tech Lives truther, and like relentlessly. Like he has never once believed that Tech is gone. Like he's still to this day. He's like, no. He's like, no, he's alive. We never saw a body. I'm like, you're so right. You're so right. But yeah.
So many times where I pointed out that, you know, Tech might come back for this moment.
Yeah.
Josh shoot it down.
Oh man, I don't think it's gonna happen, but you know, if it ever does happen, you know, I'm happy for everyone, including your dad out there, who will be just overjoyed with.
For sure. It would be crazy, like if they really do. I'm still shocked that CX2 is not Tech, because the parallels were really, really, really insane.
That was
I don't.
crazy. Do you remember that assassin,
No.
that clone assassin that came out like in season 3, and it was like everyone was theorizing like, hey, is it Tech being like brainwashed and stuff like that, and it ended up just being some rando. Do you remember that?
Does it have to do with the?
It was in season 3. There was like
facility on that planet.
Yeah. There was like an assassin clone that came and tried to hunt them down.
Oh, but they're working with Crosshair.
He was kind of a mysterious.
Yeah.
He was like a mysterious character, and he's just some generic guy, just some generic clone.
Yeah.
But people thought it was Tech, and it was like, oh, he lives. But
Yeah. Well, it's crazy because there's so many parallels that are just like uncanny. Like not even just like, oh, you know, like it's like, oh, he like got stuck under rubble and he's limping on the same leg that Tech broke in season 2, and like, he, you know, is like saying, he says domicile. Who else would say domicile but Tech? Who says it in season 2? Like it's like, you know, just like random little things, but it's like
maybe that was the plan.
too.
And then they rewrote it at the last minute, and instead it was they just made him like Palpatine's son or something.
Yeah.
Well, that's what a lot of people like. That's what a lot of people said, because I don't know if this is confirmed, but I do remember there being a lot of rumors that it was supposed to be like Bad Batch was supposed to be 4 seasons. So some people think that maybe that was one of the plot lines that was maybe contained. Now I have some clownery hope that if they do a Clone Rebellion show, that maybe that would be a great time to have a nice little reversal of Rex and Echo rescuing Tech the way that Rex and Tech rescued Echo. Like, you know, that would be nice.
Please explain to me this clone Rebel series. This sounds intriguing.
What's your pitch?
What's the pitch?
So the basis of, first of all, the basis of this is pure delusion. I, even from my time, like back when I was, you know, in the channels, back when I was working at Screen Rant, it's not like I heard any whispers. It's pure clownery. But it feels like the next logical step once we're done with Maul, potentially, because there's so much they set up in Bad Batch. So season 2, you have Cody going AWOL. We still don't know what's going on with Cody. And then you have, you know, Rex and Echo, and they end Bad Batch with them going to Pantora with all these clones, with Emery. Like, all the setup that they've been doing throughout the seasons of the Bad Batch. And
hold on, I gotta interject.
You know
who else is on Pantora? George Lucas.
Yeah, that's right.
Imagine George Lucas like helps the Clone Rebellion.
Yeah, the Lucas family lives in Pantora.
He comes back. They all show there.
Except for Jack.
I'm back.
Yeah.
I have returned.
And I swear, I was just looking at Twitter today, and I saw someone who saw D at a con, and they were asking about Cody, and he said that he wanted Cody to come back in a Clone Rebellion show. Like, I mean, that has no merit. The actors will say yes a lot of the time to, you know, whatever gives them an opportunity to play certain characters. But, you know, I just think that would be great. My other random show pitch that I pitched when I was at Star Wars Celebration Japan is that I wanted a essentially like Rebel pilots animated show, and it's like Hera and Omega and other, you know, Rebel pilots. And I was like, let's get a team up. I don't know if they can do a whole show about it, but like, even if it's like a little tales of, I think that would be fun.
Do you hold any hope that maybe Omega will show up in the Ryan Gosling Starfighter?
I don't know about that. I was thinking the other one, the one the Patty Jenkins somewhat canceled.
Oh yeah, the shelved Rogue Squadron.
Yeah,
I could see that. I could see that if it ever happens. You know, like I could see that. I don't know. Have you thought about it? Have you given it much thought?
Oh, I sure have. I think that Omega is really the only realistic character from the Bad Batch they could bring to live action potentially. Not like could. It's just that's it would be really hard, I think, to bring the Bad Batch to live action because they're supposed to look like, you know, Tem, but not really. And like, you know, I don't know. I think it could be done, but it would be hard.
Be very CG,
whereas,
I think,
yes, exactly. And I know that with the fans too, it would be very particular. It's just difficult. There's some things that are just better to stay in animation. But Omega, I think, is exactly.
Agreed. Also in this series.
Yeah, which I think actually X-Time was actually talking about that recently. Like some things you just need to leave in animation. But I think that Omega is a character that you could do fairly easily. And even in Mandalorian and Grogu, like that, this is again, I run on delusion. That's how I run. And I was like, anytime we're in a Delphi, I'm like looking in the background because I would not put it past Dave Filoni to ever put any random little Bad Batch teases and like anything, Bad Batch Rebels, all his beloveds. And I was like looking and I was like,
That's why I think
obviously not.
That we're going to see, what's the girl's name?
Oh, yeah, Omega?
Omega. That's why I think Omega's going to show at some point. She has to.
Oh, yeah.
Especially now that Dave is the head. Like,
he'll
it's
bring
going to
it back.
happen.
He'll bring
It's
it
going to
back.
happen.
Well, yeah. I wouldn't be shocked if it's honestly like potential in Ahsoka season 2. I would not be surprised. I'm not expecting it, but I would not be surprised. I also really want Rex though in Ahsoka season 2. It's about time to take Tamara Morrison off the show.
I do too. I fully agree. Like it was such a shame what happened with Book of Boba. I thought for sure that would get a season 2 or a follow up or something like that.
Yeah.
Rex was already live action in Ahsoka season 1. Right? In the
exactly.
The flashback.
Yeah.
Yes.
They have the asset.
And Tem voiced him.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
Yep. So I mean, and now like Tem is the perfect age to play Rex at this point in the timeline.
Totally.
It's it makes sense. It wouldn't require any CG or anything to age backwards. And since they already took that version of Obi-Wan Kenobi away from us, where we could have had Cody on Tatooine with Obi-Wan, I need this. Actually, I need it badly.
that was something I actually really liked about season 2. Like the plot line with Cody like coming back, finding out that he deserts. That was something I really loved. It really did that character justice because for years,
season 2, which show
of Bad Batch, because for years, like people, experienced this character working side by side with Kenobi, and kind of like how Rex and Anakin get along. And then in episode 3, it's just like, dude, like,
just so heartlessly, right?
Yeah. So like this season really gave that character some justice and like room to breathe and be like, hey, like, wow, like what happened,
because he probably came out of the brainwash, was like, what did I do? What happened?
Yeah, exactly. So like, and I'm still waiting for him to show up again, like in some other show, but.
Oh yeah. There weren't many Crosshair centric episodes in season 2, but the 2 that they had before like the last chunk were, oh my gosh, I mean with Mayday as well, it's actually crazy. They did so well, and it was such good setup for the redemption Crosshair would get in season 3. And I mean, like, I really didn't like Crosshair, and that's because I love Hunter, so like the beef was hard for me. I was like, I really was not on his side.
Yeah,
but
he's quite the sniveling guy, isn't he? Like,
he just is like, and you know what? I can say this because I'm a youngest child, and he's the youngest of the batch, and he's so youngest sibling coded. He saw that they were about to get a new sibling, and he said, you know what? Absolutely not. And he just was basically having a tantrum. Yeah.
Crosshair
Yeah.
So it just was like but they convinced me. The redemption was great. I appreciate his character so much more now.
I did too. I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
I really appreciated season 2 for the Zillow Beast. That was a plot line in Clone Wars that literally went nowhere. Like at the end of season 2, it was kind of set up to be like, hey, this is kind of a secret research thing that Palpatine's doing. Maybe we'll find out more. Never happened, right? And like, who knows if they would have done that in one of the unproduced episodes? Like out of the material that they have talked about, it doesn't seem like it was in the cards. But I really liked season 2 for that reason. Like it was like, oh, hey, like we're revisiting this plot line with the Zillow Beast. This is cool. Like this is really neat because, for any fans of Clone Wars out there from season 2, it's just like, just like recycle ideas
that you don't think go anywhere.
Yeah, and like
Stinky all over again.
Oh man, yeah. Such a great thing, and
that's why, Omega's gonna come back. You heard it here.
Omega's gonna come back. I need I need your help with something, Molly. I have to admit this though. When season 2 happened, episode 13. I had a hard time with that one. I had a hard time with
Pabu, like the one they're just on.
Oh
Josh's
my
favorite.
goodness. I had so many things to say because I think it was like, it was this
Really?
huge build up. And then all the characters find a nice place to like sit down and relax and build their life. And then the plot line being that of like some crazy rare storm that happens once every billion years or something crazy just happens to wipe out the island. I'm like, what? Like, how? Like, how are these guys like so
It's
just
the
like
Force,
the
Josh.
bad luck is insane, man. It's like our buddy AJ was always getting hit by cars. Like, he's always in car crashes. Like, how, man? I don't get it. But
I know how to help you guys. If you haven't, have you read the Bad Batch novel Sanctuary?
it's
it?
still on my list. But when we do it, we'll get you on again. We'll talk about it.
I won't talk too many like spoilers, but it takes place between that episode and then Tipping Point, which is episode 14. And it's about them on a mission with Fee getting the resources to help rebuild Lower Pabu. And it's actually really funny that you said that line about the like them having bad luck wherever they go, because Tech literally has a line in this book about it, and I'm looking it up right now because I have like 5 copies, and I'm not even exaggerating. I have,
Really? Like 5 copies of the same book?
Yes. So
signed?
here's what happened. So I do have 2 signed. So I have one that I ordered, like it was like pre-signed, and then I interviewed the author Lamar Giles back when I was still a Screen Rant at the tail end there, and he had like the special edition with the sprayed edges of the Batch's helmets, and he sent one to me because he found out I hadn't gotten it, and then he personalized that.
Oh,
so
nice.
very sweet gesture. It was a really, really sweet gesture. And so I have those. I had those are 2 alone, and then I bought one at my local Barnes and Noble the day it came out, and then I also had already pre-ordered one on Amazon. So it was just, you know.
So you like the book then, huh?
Yeah. So you like the book?
You know what? My very close friend, she laughs at me because now they have paperback, and I'm like, well, now I need to get that.
Right, you
But
gotta collect them all.
Yeah. So I know. So I found this line, and it's Tech and Fee talking, because also, if you like the Tech Fee dynamic, you need to read the book because it's crazy, like how much they build that relationship. But Tech literally says, like, he's like, it does make me revisit a loose theory I've been postulating for a while. I wonder if there's some inherent quirk in our team dynamics that draws us towards chaos no matter how carefully we plan for calm. It feels like we're in over our heads every week. And I'm like, that's such a like funny little meta way of talking about how
it's just like addressing the
on.
show. It's like addressing literally the writers writing the show. Hey, what kind of problem can we throw at them this week?
Especially the first season was very monster of the week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then and you saying that, then there's Wrecker in season 3 going, why is there always a big monster? They're so self-aware. It's so funny. But I get it. But yeah, you will. That episode specifically, you'll gain new appreciation for after reading Sanctuary, because it's gonna build up the dynamics of like Hunter and Fee like kind of being in conflict, and then there's Tech Fee, and then there's like there's a lot of really good stuff, like character work going on there that makes you like, okay, you know, and it deepens their bond to Pabu as a planet. So like getting to watch the origin story is more rewarding.
This will be the Pabu redemption arc.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I need to read this to kind of like just be okay with the episode, because like I feel like it built the whole season, just built me up. And then that episode happened. I was just so devastated. I just couldn't I had nothing good to say about it. You know, I was just ruined.
Sure. I was telling Josh we should look up our ratings from across the whole series, but I don't think he saved that far back.
Yeah.
But I bet you anything, Josh is
only
pretty high, and then the Pabu episodes will just be like massive.
Yeah, we only started keeping track of our like ratings, I think, when we started doing like Andor's season 2 or the Acolyte.
Recently.
So it's pretty recent. Yeah, that's the one I started keeping track on the spreadsheet.
Yeah, I mean, that episode was in a tough place because it was the one after the Outpost, you know, Crosshair Mayday. Like that's gonna be hard to beat no matter what.
It is.
And I mean, it was definitely like supposed to be a calm before the storm, but yeah, like, you know, everything went on pause, and then we resumed right after that, and But yeah, no, I promise you, Sanctuary is going to make you appreciate that episode a whole lot more.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Because, like, if I'm not mistaken, Josh, another Pabu gut punch is that you're really upset that on Pabu, what's her name?
Fee. Was it Fee or somebody else?
No, what's her name comes back?
Omega?
Omega?
No.
Oh, Sid?
Sorry, I'm not great at names today. leaving you all anticipation.
Wait, who comes back? Who comes back?
It's after the Dark
Pabu?
Disciple book.
The Dark Disciple? Oh, Ventress?
Ventress. Yeah, that was on Pabu.
Oh,
was that on Pabu?
In season 3. Okay, in season 3, the Harbinger.
Oh, that was season 3.
It was, but
she does go to
Pabu. Damn it.
Does she go to Pabu?
That's where they see her. Yeah.
She does go to Pabu. Yeah.
Oh,
and,
in season 3, right?
She beats them all up. It's so funny.
Right. Yeah, because I had a big beef with like
all of your beefs are on Pabu.
Well, all of my beefs happen to. This is probably why I feel so like up in arms about Pabu, because like because I had a big problem with like the resurrection of Ventress. I remember literally shedding tears when I read Dark Disciple when it first got released, because I grew up with Clone Wars. When the unproduced episodes got I guess adapted, you could say, I just sponged that stuff up, right? So Dark Disciple is one of the few Star Wars books I've read more than once. And every time I read it, it just hits the right spot for me. Like there's something about that book that's just magic. And as far as her death goes, I've always been okay with it. Like it's a character that doesn't show up later. A good death means a good story. That like the story prior, the redemption arc, the whole like rediscovering of herself, the sacrifice, everything. It was so good. Yeah. And I was okay with it. I was okay with that. It's like and then when she came back, I was like, what?
Undoes all of it. Yeah.
Why? It just undoes so much of the emotional impact for me. And then and then I guess she, I guess in season 3 they, it's associated with Pabu. So I got all these toxic feelings about Pabu. I just like, they're in my system, buried deep down. I feel like I have more negative feelings for Pabu than the usual person.
Uses Pabu as a curse word, believe it or not.
Ah, Pabu.
Had a bad day.
Nobody's gonna know what I'm saying.
That's so funny, because like the level of brain rot I'm at for Bad Batch is like Pabu is heaven. Like we love Pabu, but like I understand what you're saying. But I promise you, Sanctuary is that Star Wars novel that I have read probably 5 or 6
I need
times.
to read this book to give me Sanctuary about Pabu.
Yes, and it will.
And you'll feel better because that you need for your Pabu Vader.
Most of the book does not take place on Pabu. It's just about Pabu.
Oh,
so that's going to make you feel better. So we're not on Pabu, but we are actively doing things to help Pabu, and it comes up a lot because one of the big, and again, without too many spoilers, like one of the big conversations, like essentially it's mostly for Hunter. His main arc is like, do we stay on Pabu and settle down, or do we keep being soldiers?
That makes sense.
So it's like
that was
that's
his biggest question, really, the whole time he was on the planet.
Yes. Yeah. So it's very much like kind of leaning into that, and then kind of foreshadowing to what's going to happen after Iriadu and Tech and all of that, and where we actually end up. And it's very good. It's just so good. The character work is fantastic. And there's original characters obviously made for the book that are so compelling, and it answers some very long, awaited clone questions. So it's just it's very good. So I promise you'll have different feelings about Pabu.
I do need to read it. I'm kind of a completionist in that weird sense. Like Dark Disciple,
That's so fair.
Dark Disciple and Son of Dathomir, for me, it's like if you love the Clone Wars and haven't read those things, like that's the way that you complete your viewing experience in a way, right? And I feel like I haven't completed the Bad Batch yet, only simply because I haven't read that book. So, I feel like I need to read it in order to tick the box, be like, hey, I've experienced everything Bad Batch,
Because we did just finish our last book.
Yeah. Well, we'll do it. We'll read the book.
Oh my gosh,
we'll have you on, Molly, if you're willing. You can kind of help us navigate this story.
You need to be here to witness the story arc of Josh's
the redemption of Pabu.
My recovery.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the biggest or easiest misconceptions to make about this book is Bad Batch is very family friendly, so this book is probably no, it's not. This is very much an adult novel. There are things going on in this novel that if I had a kid of a certain age, they would not be reading this book.
Is it one of the Random House World books?
I Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it
okay,
is.
that explains that, yeah.
And yes, and like there are things that the Batch is doing that I'm like, wow, they never even did this in the show, and I have such a big appreciation for it because that's one thing I always wanted from the show, and I understood why they couldn't. But like, I'm like, this is like, you know, like a special forces squad. Like these are they are willing to do things, you know, like that are, you know, grittier and darker than anyone else, and so they're doing those things in this book. Yes, they're doing those things in this book, and it just made me very happy. I was like, you know, it made me happy. Yes, violence, but like, you know, it felt more like the Mandalorian style and like level of.
I wonder. You just raised a question in my mind. Would it make it feel like the old Commando novels? Did you ever read those?
That's a good question. I have not read those. I have heard things about them, but I haven't. But from what I've heard, I think in terms of like that level of, you know, how they do like canon typical violence, but a little bit more. I think yes. I think it's comparable for sure. There's differences, but I think it definitely is. And especially in terms of giving depth to everyone, which was very nice because I always make the joke that, and along with like talking about how we were earlier with season 3 and how there might have been season 4. So I think some things were cut in season 3. And I do think that some of those things that suffered is both Hunter and Wrecker's arcs. I like to make the joke that Hunter like gets lobotomized halfway through season 3. I'm like, he doesn't know what he's doing anymore till the finale. But yeah, like it gives this depth we really needed for everyone involved. Of course it's at a time where Echo and Crosshair aren't with the Batch, but I won't say they're not important. Wink, wink. So
yeah, right. Oh man, I like
my interest.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I made it my personal job to make sure everyone ever reads Sanctuary. And that's something I was very grateful that the author, Lamar Giles, he was like, you've been the biggest champion of this book. And I'm like, well, I'll continue to, because you know what? Like,
it's the one and only,
my job.
The one and only Bad Batch book. So I believe it.
True,
you know?
Yes. Well, I would love another one. I don't expect it, especially because the show's been over for 2 years now. And we were lucky to get what we had. But also, I mean, if you guys are really completionists, y'all also need to read the Bad Batch comics, Ghost Agents and Rogue Agents.
Yeah,
Rogue Agents
that's
is about
right. Yeah, the Dark Horse series.
Those are so, those are so good.
So
the story is fantastic. And the story of Ghost Agents, actually, this interweaves with Mandalorian and Grogu, because guess who shows up? Embo.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and it you know, that was last year, so it was well before the movie came out. And I remember seeing the trailer with Embo, and I went, "Oh my gosh, my space dads need to stay away from this guy. Like, we're in danger. I can't." Like, the first Cad Bane with both of them. Now I got Embo. Like, what's going on? But also we got. This is one of the craziest pulls of all time. But in the sequel comic series, which is Rogue Agents, they recently went to Port Borgo, like, you know, Skeleton Crew. And I was like, that's crazy, because I like wrote a thing last year and I brought them to Port Borgo, and I went, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's wow. I mean, I'm always a big fan of seeing Embo back. I mean, like that was something about you know, Mandalorian and Grogu that I really appreciated.
That was a
actually.
very, very good decision on that show.
Yeah, it was.
That was so cool.
Yeah.
And I do need to ask you, seeing as like,
And
I mean,
they did him justice too.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
Yes,
like,
yeah.
I totally agree. Like you know, like I guess a good segue into the Mandalorian and Grogu, only because we're kind of running out of time here. But how did you like the movie? You know, like, what did you appreciate about it? And like, you know, yeah, like I guess, yeah, give it to us. Like, what did you love about it?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love this movie. And like, I'm very good now at being objective with my Mandalorian opinions. And like, I struggled a bit around season 3, I remember, but like this movie was, and I remember John Favreau saying this around the time that they announced it and we're starting to share details, is he was like, this is one we really wanted to make for the fans. And he was right. Like, as someone who's been here with The Mandalorian since even before it came out, I remember being a part of the hype leading up to it. It was everything I really wanted for this. And, you know, a lot of people will say it was a safe move. Yes, I do think it was safe, but it was safe in a way that I appreciated, because it just felt like this big breath of fresh air before we move into something else, whether it's season 4 or another movie. It's like, some people think it's the closing of a chapter permanently, and I'm like, obviously y'all are not with it, because, you know, the merchandise they're making, like the merchandise profit, you know, it's insane.
It's great.
Grogu
and then
keeps selling,
as someone who's at the parks all the time, like Disney parks, there is no shortage of people who are looking for Mandalorian and Grogu stuff all the time, wearing Mandalorian shirts. Like they're here to stay.
Oh,
but
I believe it. Yeah.
Yeah, this movie was just it was such a love letter to, I feel like, the show and those characters, and I loved spending so much time with Din and Grogu. Like, I don't care that there weren't major Star Wars, lore connections, and that when we did get Easter eggs, they were kind of small. Did y'all notice the Star Cruiser Easter egg?
What?
Did you see it?
Oh, please
What was that again?
On Shikari. So when they were leaving the salt bar on Shikari, there was a ad for
the
Halcyon.
poster. The poster on the wall?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
It was
got
like
it
so it was like it was. Yeah, I remember seeing it in one of the trailers, but I wasn't sure if they was going to make the final cut. I don't know why, I just wasn't sure. And then I saw it in the theater and I was like, oh my gosh, my Halcyon is in the Mandalorian Grogu. Like, that felt so personal because I was working at Star Cruiser the last time Mandalorian content came out, season 3.
Oh wow.
That's so cool. Yeah,
I know that's how long ago it was.
Yeah, it lives
on. But I felt like the story was great for what it was. Like, I feel like it worked for everything that it was trying to do.
My only question would be, did you like it as a movie, or would you rather have seen it as a season?
Good question. I think this specific story worked as a movie. I don't know how they would have drawn out everything they did in the movie in more episodes, because I think they would have done a bigger variety of adventures, and who's to say that maybe that wasn't the original plan, but I liked having it as a movie. I kind of like the idea of this because here's the thing: you can easily see them going from the end of season 3 to season 4, and like, if you haven't seen this movie, that's not really going to change much. Like, it's one of those movies that's like, it's going to benefit you to watch it because you're going to watch the dynamic between Din and Grogu change a bit, and like Grogu is going to be more capable, but it's also a like logical time skip from season 3 to season 4. It's not as, ironically enough, it's not as dependent as Book of Boba Fett, for Mando season 3.
Yeah, that really
how did Grogu get back here?
That really throws a wrench in anyone binging the series and doesn't know.
Yeah.
I know. I have to tell people that all the time when
I told my dad that before he recently rewatched everything, for the new movie. And I told him before, I was like, don't forget to throw in Book of Boba. And he forgot. I was like,
he's like, this doesn't make any sense,
man. Like, and then I'm like, did you watch Book of Boba? He's like, huh?
No.
Come on, man. Yeah, it was funny.
Yeah. No, it's tough because I always have to tell people that too. I'm like, don't forget to watch, you need to watch the last 3 episodes of this show before you watch season 3.
So
they look at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, I understand. But every day I mourn the fact that fantastic episode, Return of the Mandalorian, like, could have been the season 3 premiere. And oh my God, that would have been the best, I think, premiere in the whole show. Like, the episode with the Darksaber is so good.
That's true.
And it is what it is. So you can't change it. But I think that's why
on Disney
go
Plus they should take like just those 3 episodes and like separate them out. So if you're watching Mandalorian, they show up as like in the playlist.
Yeah, that would be cool if they could do something like that. Like almost like a little 2.5.
Yeah, that would. Yeah, that's a Disney Plus like feature that they should have.
I think they should do that.
Yeah, or like how they do I know they make like the little playlist kind of things on like the Star Wars homepage on Disney Plus, and if they did like I think they do that with like the Clone Wars, like watch Clone Wars in timeline order. They should do that with Mandalorian.
Yeah,
and it's like, here, watch these episodes, and then they're there. But it's in terms of Mandalorian and Grogu, it was like, I really appreciated that it was such a self-contained story that you don't need the context of the show to understand it, and you also won't need the context of the movie to go to a potential season 4. It's very like, it does all that without cheapening, I feel like getting Grogu's characters. Yeah, I do hope for more for Din though.
After seeing the movie, I hope so.
He's just back on his farm, right?
Yes, except he blew up his roof, so he better fix that because the man gets a house and then he blows it up. And I was literally sitting there, I'm like, Din.
Are you? Let me ask you something. Are you happy about him getting another Razor Crest again?
Yeah, you're gonna ask.
I actually was, because I like the way they did it. I mean, I know a lot of there was a lot of skepticism at first because it's like, come on, like the destruction of the Razor Crest was supposed to be, like a big significant arc because it means he's not bounty hunting anymore. But the way they did it, where it was like they know that Din wanted a Razor Crest because he's still asking for one in Book of Boba Fett. Like they knew he wanted it, so they found one, and it was from an Imperial warlord who had a collection of it, and like it was his payment. I was okay with that. And I still am okay with it, especially because they showed us that he still has the N1. So it's kind of like he's got a sports car in his minivan because he's a dad. So, take whichever one that fits the vibe. But, and I actually also really liked the pulse rifle explanation as well, because that made a lot of sense. And it wasn't like a huge deal, like it wasn't like he had it the whole movie. It was just at the end.
Right.
And the pulse rifle getting destroyed wasn't ever a big thing. Like that just, you had to conclude that it blew up with the Razor Crest, basically. Like it wasn't like he ever had a moment where he's like, no, my Ammon Face Pulse blaster rifle, I can't believe it. So those things, it happened naturally to me, so I'm okay with that. I do hope, I hope it doesn't become a substitute for their house, because I think it's very significant that they have a house together.
Yeah.
And even in the movie, I was disappointed that we were always repairing the Razor Crest and we weren't in the in the house. The only time we're in the house is when we're blowing up the house, and I'm like, why?
Right.
The one thing. Okay, that's not. I shouldn't say the one thing. There's another thing, and I'll say that in a second. But one of the things I really wanted for this movie was just a moment of Din and Grogu in their house. It didn't have to be long, but even just seeing, can he take the helmet off around Grogu? Because that's very those rules are not very clear right now. It's family. He's your son.
Right.
Does he can? He can. How are you going to eat food in your house? Does Grogu have to go outside? Do you have to go outside?
It would be,
smoothies. Yeah,
these are the kind of things that
maybe
they can explain this in season 4 whenever they inevitably make that.
And that would be the appropriate time, the appropriate pacing to do that. You don't want to, when you have such a short amount of time for a movie, you don't really want to dedicate a significant amount of time to them just sitting in their house.
So maybe that is one benefit we would have gotten as a season.
Yes,
is more of just the slow points.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that those are significant. Obviously, you don't want to have too many of them, but that's something I really appreciate about Bad Batch as well, is that they do slow down. It's not always, but sometimes, with the crossing episode with Tech and Omega having the talk by the water, those kinds of things I think that if you do them right, then it has a lot of impact. And especially, like I was saying for Din, I feel like his personal story has been kind of flat ever since Return of the Mandalorian, the Darksaber episode. Once he got his redemption, he's kind of been just dad guy warrior, which is great. But it's almost like when the Star Wars has their father figure characters and they finally accept that they're fathers, then they kind of just don't do anything.
Right. It was the next step
we can still have character growth.
Looking after a teenager, but that's not going to be for 80 years.
Yeah.
Try 100 or two.
But yeah, Din especially has such there's so much we still don't know about his past, and there's so much we still don't know about the circumstances of the rescue of him by Death Watch. Why were they there? Why were they helping? What was going on? And I sense something sinister that I feel would be really, really delicious to explore.
That'd be cool.
What if he has a crisis because it finds there was a time where the Children of the Watch were staging attacks to become heroes in the eyes of Mandalore, So who's to say that Aqua wasn't a staged attack, that technically the Death Watch killed his parents, and he finds that out, and has to question everything. It doesn't have to be that dramatic. That's just been one of my longest
Could make a good
theories.
Comic book series or something, right?
I want it on the silver screen.
Yeah, could make a good animated show.
I would love to see Din in animation. I've been wanting to see Din in animation, Clone Wars style, for so long. I want it so bad. I would love to do a Tales of the Mandalorians. Let's do that next and have Din be one.
In the animated style, though, we got the original Boba Fett in this holiday special.
Iconic. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Oh man. Yeah, I gotta ask you this too, because you were at the red carpet. You got an invitation to that. So how did that come about, and how was that experience? Was that really cool?
Yeah, that was crazy, because I have certainly done a lot of crazy things in the last year or so where Star Wars is concerned, and a lot of that was facilitated through when I was at Screen Rant. But this, I haven't been with Screen Rant for almost a year now, and this was something that was just for being a fan. So the official Star Wars account shot me a message about 2 weeks before the event, and they were like, hey, you're invited to the world premiere. And I literally fell to my knees. I went, well, I'm sorry, what? Like,
that's insane.
Man, I can imagine you just like seeing a message in your DMs like
from Star Wars
account.
Yes.
Like, did I just get banned?
What happened? Like, is this a spam account?
Yeah, well, that's what because my first instinct was to call my parents because I'm like, oh my, like this needs to happen, and I wanted to call my dad because I didn't know if he could go like to the premiere with me, but I'm like, you need to come with me, and my mom was like, are you sure it's real? And I was like, Mom, it is the official Star Wars account, like it has the yellow check mark, and they've DM'd me before, like it was crazy. So it was like an RSVP, and I RSVP'd. My parents are incredible. They helped me make sure I was going to get there. I worked with work to make sure I could get days off. So it all ended up working out.
That's incredible.
But it was insane. And it happened so fast because that was, like I said, it was like 2 weeks before. I don't even think it was a full 2 weeks before the premiere was happening. Yeah. Which, I mean, I get it because I think at that point we're kind of like seat filling because we were in the Chinese theater, which was the theater that Jon Favreau introduced the movie at, that everyone was sitting in, like, Pedro, Sigourney, they're all there, which is insane because they also had the El Capitan theater across the street, and that's where other people went.
So you were in the theater with Pedro, like watching his movie?
I sure was.
That's so cool. That's so special.
It was so special.
You'll remember that for the rest of your life, and just that's incredible.
I sure will. And if they heard any, if they saw flailing in the front right section, that was me. And it's like, you're welcome. I can't control. I'm used to watching Mandalorian content for the first time by myself at 3 a.m. So that was that was an experience. I'm like, I have to do this in public. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it was whirlwind.
General question. So so you're front right. Where do the cast sit in that theater? Just out of curiosity.
Fantastic question. They sit, so it's kind of like, I think if I'm remembering correctly, so they have like a balcony section, and then they have like the main theater, and there's like a section kind of in the middle, and then you can go down the stairs, and that's like the front seats where, and it's an IMAX screen, so it's a gigantic screen. So the further down you go, the worse your view is, which is fine. I'm not complaining. I was literally all the way in the end of the row, so like the whole movie was warped. Well, that's the thing.
You bring binoculars to just watch the cast watching the movie.
Watch their reactions.
Yeah. And I should have done that, and I didn't look back enough. But like, it wasn't even just the cast. Like Katie Sackhoff was in there, Ming-Na Wen was in there, Emily Swallow was in there, Amanis Fondi, like all the people that were there, they were all there. And so the cast, they were sitting in that like middle section so that they had the best view of the screen. Yes. I think that's where I saw Dave Filoni standing up after the movie finished. And I saw a
cowboy hat.
I saw, and I really wanted to talk to Ludwig Ronson, oh my gosh, because he was like number one on my Spotify in 2021, I think, because I like listening to the Mandalorian soundtrack, but he was talking to somebody as I was leaving the theater, but I was still like, oh my gosh, like you're also an Oscar winner, like it's crazy, like that's that guy. But yeah, I got to see and talk with quite a few of the cast of Mandalorian, like that's pretty cool. The actor who plays Dr. Pershing, Omid Abtahi, he was fantastic.
They're
so
all
nice.
there too.
Vanessa Marshall was there.
Oh wow, yeah.
Like half the people in there were a crew. From like the whole series.
Yeah. I briefly spoke with Diana Leano Santo. She loved my dress. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so nice. I was right behind Katie. I really want to see Ming-Na Wen. I just did not. I didn't catch like Pedro, John, or Dave because they were at the end and they were rushing us in the theater. But I got to see Brendan Wayne, who I met last year for the first time, but I've known him for years through social media, and got hugs from him, which was fantastic. I'm like, it's your night and I'm getting hugs. This is amazing. So it was so just cool. Like
we were just talking about him when we did our we did a chat about the movie, and we were just talking about what a crazy cool legacy it is that he's like playing that character in like a Star Wars Western, all these years later after his grandfather was like a legend in the genre of Western. Like that's so cool. I mean,
and like one of the other cool parts is he's also just a guy, and I mean that in the best way possible. Like I interviewed him for Screen Rant, early 2024, like right around the time the movie had just been announced. And he's taking the Zoom call, and he's like, sorry, like I'm gonna be second. Like he's literally kicking a soccer ball around with his daughter because he coaches soccer. Yeah. Like it was, like he's just for some people he's just Coach Brendan, but he's also the Mandalorian. Like it's so crazy. Yeah, him and Lateef as well is also super awesome. He was at the same con I met them at, and like we're so lucky to have the Din Djarin we have. Like all three of the main guys, they're just such good people. I've met all of them, which is crazy to say, but yeah, they're all such good people.
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, we could talk to you forever about this stuff. I mean,
so interesting.
It is.
Yeah, and I feel like we all have very similar feelings about it too. So
yeah, and like
jive.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like our general opinion, like we all, nothing but good things to say about it. We had nothing bad to say about it. Like we all enjoyed it. We thought it was really fun. I mean, from a corporate point of view, I can see, them kind of testing the waters with a really safe movie like this, like just kind of before the Ryan Gosling thing happens, before they go any further with the Rey movie, I can see them like, hey, people really responded well to these characters. Let's do it on the big screen, see how it goes. Yeah. And for that reason alone, it didn't blow me away, but I enjoyed it.
It was a fun adventure.
Yeah. And and for me, I'm like, because I'm a chronological viewer, so it really throws a wrench in my Star Wars movie watching, because like I'm like, how do I consume this movie going forward? Do I watch it in the context of all these other movies, or do I just save it for when I'm doing the show?
You gotta fit the Mando, just nothing else.
Yeah, but man, I'm glad it exists, and I hope it really spurs on season 4, because like I feel like so many of us are really wanting that. So
I think that is probably the next logical move instead of doing a sequel movie. And especially like, this isn't a point I like to bring up a lot, because, and I know Brendan Wayne has actually talked about this recently, like box office was never something they were really aiming for with this movie. Like I think they realistically accepted, like this is based on a streaming show. People know it's going to go to Disney Plus. Box office is going to be tough. Yeah. But they made back their budget, that's all that really matters. They had such a small budget. I think it just recently crossed like 300 million or something. But like people just want season 4. They just, that's all I've heard. Everyone is like, I hope it's season 4. And I think that's the next logical step. So hopefully, and it'll probably just carry on whatever they do with Ahsoka season 2.
I do feel like the only complaint I've heard is they wish it was a season, because they probably felt like it should have been a season. Like it felt.
Well, there's just so many people itching for another season. Yeah, I think that's why you get people out there that want that, right? That's why there's those.
That's why it's.
Yeah,
it was so nice to see a movie, and to see them on the big screen was like unreal. I've seen it. I think I've seen it either 4 or 5 times.
Wow, really?
Because it's been a bit.
No, I shouldn't be surprised.
That includes the premiere.
I bet the reason why it was theatrical is so they could get a bigger budget to do the Hutt's justice for all those wrestling scenes.
It was just for Stinky. That's it. That's why.
Just for Stinky.
They needed more budget for all of his muscles and his abs.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, but I do feel like season 4 is the next move, and yeah, I mean, like, because Jon Favreau has said it's still written, so he already has most of it done. He just probably has to revise with whatever happened in the movie, and we're good to go. So, and Dave Filoni is obviously very connected to the project as well, and he's now co-president.
For sure.
Him and Lin-Wen,
As we close the curtains tonight, Molly, like what's something that you're really looking forward to that's been announced already?
Wow, that's a great question. Honestly, Maul season 2. Maul Shadow Lord is fantastic. I was floored by how good that show was.
I think we were all mind-blown. Yeah, we were all.
I can already tell. We're gonna have to have you back to talk about that.
Yeah. If you want to come back for any of the weekly things that we do for that show, like in the future, absolutely. Like, yeah, we loved that show. It was so good.
Man, it was amazing.
Yeah, really gave me chills.
That show is so good. Yup.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming back, Molly. What kind of socials can people find you, and what do you want to kind of put out there?
Yeah, you can find me at Molly Lorian on Twitter. Also, the Molly Lorian, most other places, Instagram, TikTok. But if you see me in TikTok comments, no, you didn't. But yes, anything with Molly Lorian, that's going to be my brand. And thank you guys so much. I had so much fun. This was fantastic. I love talking about my two favorite things, and I can't wait to be back when you read Sanctuary.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's our next read. So I promise you,
It's
that's
official.
the next one we'll do. It's official.
It is official now.
It's happening.
From not
Awesome.
even knowing it existed at the beginning of this episode to the end to being an official next read.
Beautiful. I'll make sure I pull out my annotated copy for that episode.
Amazing. Okay. Awesome. It's happening. We'll make it happen. But yeah, thank you again, Molly. It's been a pleasure. All right. And thank you, Blake, for co-hosting tonight. Always a pleasure as well. And we will see you next week.
It's always a pleasure, sir. We'll see you out there. Keep flying.
All right. A huge thank you to our audience for tuning in as always. As you know, we do this just because we love Star Wars, and we do love seeing people love the podcast. So if you happen to be on a platform that you can rate 5 stars, we'd absolutely love that. You can find us on YouTube. Go and check out the links below. I'll put all of Molly's links in the description box. And have an awesome week. May the Force be with you.